Most people are taught that when someone asks a question, the polite thing to do is answer it. We're conditioned from childhood to believe that questions are signs of curiosity, respect, or connection. But in the real world, especially in adult relationships, social hierarchies, and conflict, many questions are not requests for information at all. They are tools. They are probes. They are psychological instruments designed to locate your weak points, test your boundaries, and measure how easily you can be moved. The dangerous part is that manipulative questions rarely sound aggressive. They often arrive wrapped in innocence. They sound casual, playful, even caring. Why are you so quiet? Are you upset with me? What are you hiding? Why can't you just be honest? On the surface, these seem harmless, but beneath the words is often a hidden agenda. The person is not seeking truth. They are seeking leverage. This is where social intelligence becomes essential. Intelligent people do not only hear the content of a question, they study the function of the question. They ask themselves, what happens if I answer this? What emotional position does it place me in? Does this invite mutual understanding, or does it force me into defense? Because many people never examine intent. They hear the words and react automatically. And automatic reactions are where control begins. There is a principle in behavioral psychology. Whoever frames the interaction often controls the interaction. The person asking the question sets the stage. They define the topic, the emotional atmosphere, and the direction of the exchange. If I ask you a loaded question, I am subtly assigning you a role. I make you the defendant, the explainer, the one who must justify. If you accept that frame without awareness, you surrender power before the conversation even begins. This is why some individuals ask questions constantly. Not because they are curious, but because questions create asymmetry. One person investigates, the other reveals. One person stays hidden, the other becomes exposed. Over time, this imbalance becomes dominance. You begin explaining yourself to someone who has explained nothing about themselves. There is also a deeper philosophical issue here. Many people confuse transparency with virtue. They believe that if they have nothing to hide, they should answer anything. But privacy is not deception. Boundaries are not dishonesty. You are not obligated to provide emotional access simply because someone formed a sentence ending with a question mark. Strong people understand this instinctively. They know that access must be earned, not demanded. They know that trust is built through reciprocity, respect, and consistency, not through interrogation. When someone asks a question with clean intent, the energy feels different. There is openness. There is vulnerability on both sides. There is mutuality. But when the intent is manipulation, the question carries pressure. It feels like a trap because it is one. And here is where many people lose themselves. They become addicted to clarifying. They spend years explaining their motives to people committed to misunderstanding them. They defend choices that need no defense. They answer accusations disguised as questions. This drains confidence because every unnecessary explanation teaches your nervous system that you are always on trial. A healthier response is to pause before answering. Silence is diagnostic. When you don't rush to fill the space, people reveal more of their true intention. Some become irritated. Some intensify. Some retreat. That reaction tells you more than the original question ever could. You do not need to answer every question to be a good person. You do not need to justify every boundary to be mature. And you do not need to participate in every frame someone offers you. Wisdom is recognizing that not every invitation is safe, and not every question deserves entry into your inner world. The moment you stop answering manipulative questions automatically is the moment other people lose the ability to define you. Once you understand that some questions are designed to control rather than connect, the next step is learning to recognize the specific forms those traps take. Manipulative people tend to recycle the same patterns. The wording may change, but the psychology underneath remains consistent. They ask questions that force you into guilt, self-defense, confession, or emotional exposure. If you can identify the pattern, you stop reacting to the script. The first question is, why are you so sensitive? This is not curiosity. It is an attempt to redefine your reaction as the problem instead of their behavior. If someone disrespects you and then asks why you are sensitive, they are trying to make accountability disappear. The trap is that you begin defending your emotions instead of examining their conduct. A stronger response is calm clarity. I'm responding appropriately to what happened. No drama, no debate. The second question is, what are you hiding? This one is built on accusation. It assumes guilt before you speak. It pressures you to disclose private thoughts simply to clear suspicion that may have been manufactured. Innocent people often panic here because they feel compelled to prove transparency. But the accusation itself is the tactic. You do not need to empty your mind to satisfy someone's insecurity. A grounded response might be, I'm not required to explain everything to you. The third question is, why can't you just trust me? Notice how this shifts responsibility. Trust is treated as something you owe them rather than something they build through consistent behavior. People who deserve trust rarely demand it. They demonstrate reliability over time. Those who ask for blind trust often want the reward without the work. The correct frame is simple. Trust is earned, not granted on request. The fourth question is, do you think you're better than everyone? This question appears whenever someone feels threatened by your boundaries, growth, discipline, or refusal to participate in dysfunction. It is designed to make confidence feel like arrogance. If you start shrinking yourself to comfort others, the tactic succeeded. Many people abandon standards because they fear being judged as prideful. But self-respect will always offend those who benefit from your lack of it. The fifth question is, can't you take a joke? This is one of the oldest social weapons in existence. Someone insults you, then disguises cruelty as humor. If you object, they position you as humorless. It is psychological laundering. Hostility passed through comedy so it appears harmless. Mature humor does not require humiliation. If someone repeatedly wounds you and hides behind jokes, believe the wound, not the laughter. Now notice what all 5 questions have in common. None of them seek understanding. They seek repositioning. They attempt to move you from center to defense, from confidence to doubt, from clarity to confusion. This is why arguing with them rarely works. The question itself is contaminated. Once you answer on its terms, you are already standing inside someone else's frame. The alternative is emotional discipline. Instead of reacting to the words, respond to the motive. Sometimes that means a brief answer. Sometimes it means redirecting. Sometimes it means silence. Silence is powerful because it refuses to validate a false premise. You do not need to wrestle every manipulative statement to the ground. Some things lose power when they receive no oxygen. There is also an internal lesson here. These questions only hook into unresolved insecurities. If you secretly fear being too sensitive, the first question lands. If you fear being misunderstood, the second lands. If you fear rejection, the third lands. The stronger your inner foundation, the weaker these tactics become. Manipulation often fails, not because the manipulator changed, but because the target did. So the real skill is not memorizing clever comebacks. It is developing enough self-knowledge that loaded questions no longer rearrange your nervous system. When you know who you are, other people's traps look obvious. The person who controls you is the person who can make you explain what never needed explaining. After you recognize manipulative questions and understand the patterns behind them, the final skill is mastery of what you choose not to reveal. This is where emotional strength becomes visible. Most people think power comes from speaking more, explaining more, proving more. In reality, power often comes from restraint. The ability to remain centered without disclosing everything is one of the clearest signs of psychological maturity. Many people feel compelled to answer because silence makes them uncomfortable. A pause can feel like guilt. Privacy can feel like dishonesty. Boundaries can feel rude. But these reactions usually come from conditioning, not truth. Somewhere along the way, many people learned that being accepted required constant accessibility. They learned that if someone asks, you owe. If someone pressures, you comply. If someone misunderstands, you correct it immediately. That conditioning creates adults who over-explain themselves to anyone with enough confidence to demand access. But healthy adults understand something different. Access is a privilege, not a right. Not everyone deserves your history, your motives, your plans, your wounds, or your private thoughts. Information is intimate. Once shared, it cannot be unshared. And many people do not ask questions to understand you. They ask questions to categorize you, judge you, compete with you, or use the answer later. This is why selective disclosure matters. Selective disclosure means you choose what to share, when to share it, and with whom to share it. It is not deception. It is discernment. You do not hand your house keys to every person who knocks on the door. Yet emotionally, many people do exactly that. They reveal fears too early, explain goals to cynical people, confess pain to those who weaponize vulnerability, and then wonder why they feel drained. There is also a strategic principle at work here. People respect boundaries they can feel. When someone asks an intrusive question and you calmly decline, you communicate self-possession. You signal that your inner world has structure. Weak boundaries invite testing. Clear boundaries reduce it. The person who answers everything teaches others to keep pushing. The person who responds with calm limits teaches others where the line is. Now, this does not mean becoming cold, secretive, or defensive. Some people misuse the idea of privacy to avoid intimacy altogether. That is not strength, that is fear disguised as control. Real maturity is knowing the difference between openness and overexposure. You can be warm and still guarded. You can be kind and still private. You can be honest and still selective. A useful question to ask yourself is this: has this person earned the truth they are requesting? Not because truth should be manipulated, but because context matters. Trustworthy people handle truth with care. Untrustworthy people handle truth like a weapon. If someone consistently gossips, shames, invalidates, or twists your words, more disclosure will not heal the relationship. It will only supply material. Another overlooked form of power is brevity. You do not need a long speech to defend a simple boundary. I'd rather not discuss that. That's private. I'm good. No thank you. These short responses protect dignity because they do not beg for permission. Over-explaining often signals uncertainty. Brevity signals decision. And perhaps the deepest lesson is this: you are not responsible for managing every interpretation others create about you. Some people will think you are distant when you are simply bounded. Some will call you secretive when you are private. Some will call you arrogant when you stop seeking approval. Let them. If you spend your life correcting false narratives, you become a servant to other people's perceptions. Peace begins when you stop auditioning for acceptance. Respect begins when you stop negotiating every boundary. Freedom begins when you realize silence is not emptiness said as control. The strongest person in the room is often the one who knows exactly what to say and chooses not to say it.